May I speak with Soul's higher self?
Yes.
I have permission to speak with Soul's higher self.
Yes.
Thank you. So grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you again. And I know that you have many, many answers. And I'm excited to hear what you have to share with us on our questions today. Do I have permission to ask questions?
Yes.
All right. I'm curious, before we jump into the questions that Soul and I have prepared for today, wondering if there's anything that you would like to show us. Anything before we begin those questions?
Yeah. I just feel so delighted to be able to have this opportunity. The first thing that I'm seeing is a star map, and I'm seeing what looks to be bouncing between stars and some kind of path or some kind of trajectory. And what I'm seeing at like the end point is the location of where a bigger portion of higher self is residing. And I do see the name Sirius marked on this map.
Mm. So soul's higher self, there's a higher concentration in the Sirius area. Is it, can you share more about that?
Yeah, a lot of oracle training happens on Sirius and a lot of teaching how to bring through messages and connecting in with higher self. So, this is a place that we can go to in meditation or soul journ. And there's a certain kind of frequency level that's held on that star. And it's what you would call conducive to being in a different vibrational state. They have nets up too that help protect and help keep it's like a preservation of the connection to higher self. It just makes it a lot easier to not have distortion fields around.
Fascinating. Do many star seeds or many souls incarnated on Earth have a similar higher self concentration there? Are there others?
Yeah. In my readings, I see predominantly there and Aldebaran as well being places where a lot of star seeds will have lifetimes and gather information and knowledge or have what I call an oracle lifetime. And some of us still remain in contact with those parallel lifetimes and we're able to multi stream at the same time. So you can window back and tap into the abilities that you have in these various different places and lifetimes.
Mm, fascinating. Definitely want to know more about that. I have some questions around that sort of gift sharing or tapping into these gifts from our other lives. Is that a
Mm.
good place to jump in?
Yeah, we can do that.
Wonderful. So would you mind sharing a little bit more about how that works, that process of tapping into our gifts, or how the higher self connection helps us to build those or to remember them?
Yeah, so we tap in, it's almost like a form of twin telepathy. So you're able to synchronize your soul codes and frequencies from those other versions of self. And we'd spoken previously on the oversoul and how facets of the oversoul are various different versions of us incarnated in the multiverse. So through tuning into these other various different versions of self, you're able to reflect on certain soul frequencies and tones. And sometimes even just like the conscious desire or reach out to want to connect, or there may be a feeling or inclination. So, for example, if there's a resonant feeling when people mention Atlantis, or you get like the chills or goosebumps when you see or hear things, whether it's people talking about things or movies, sometimes that's like a soul signature sign that perhaps you've resided there or had a lifetime of impact there. So this is this is sort of like a way of your higher soul getting the tingles or goosebumps, letting you know. So you can consciously travel back there through tuning into the frequencies. And sometimes you can even visualize or tap into costumes or artifacts that you've had in those various different lifetimes. And it's almost like popping that on, you get a psychometry, intuitional feeling or reading into the vibration and energy signature of that particular lifetime and what it's like to run those programs. So just like how we have different soul codes and different preordained uh, programs and frequencies, personalities, and objectives that we have down here for what it is that we're here to do, we also have this in other off worldly places. And this is something that I've often pondered as well. Are there other star systems when we live in different multiverses and different places that impact upon our personalities? I'm just seeing the answer yes. So we've got like a whole different set of playbooks and rules in some of these other places. So there's different influences and aspects that will, I guess, populate different personalities and different habits and different beliefs and different obstacles and things that we have to overcome. So we're only really familiar with the earth ones down here in this realm. It's almost like there's a higher resonant frequency with some of the other places and some of the other star codes that people are impacted by. So, not necessarily as heavy as what we have down here in this earth realm. This is kind of like swimming through a swamp or swimming through mud in terms of like the karmic impact and the awareness, but things are lightening up. There has been a shift with the planets, and there's definitely an increase in frequency. What is hardest for the human mind to comprehend at the moment is letting go of the struggle. So we'd spoken about things in other new moon events that Sol has run, where she talks about letting go of different things that you don't desire anymore. This is more, we want to put the attention and focus on what it is that you do want as the outcome. And this is now what is part of the rays that are coming to Earth. And we really are realizing that our our mind and our heart is running the projector. So we choose internally within our consciousness what movie we want to have projected into this realm. And while some of these projectors are still caught up in old dramas and old stories and things, there are higher versions of us speaking into our consciousness about letting go from these things. So if you think about other versions of self being like guides, a lot of the higher frequency beings on the planet Earth right now, a lot of the star seeds and a lot of the people that are kind of awakened to higher consciousness, they do have higher self stepping in as guides. So when we awaken in this earth realm, it's usually because another version of us has awakened in another realm. So there's a like a co-resonant bounce on type effect. And that's why we're showing you the star map today too, because there's a different kind of vibrational frequency that's starting to resonate, just like ringing a bell or ringing a tuning fork and it's hitting another tuning fork and that's switching on another tuning fork. And then what we see is the vibrational dance of the different soul collectives. So there's been a spark that happened outside of our galaxy, and we are also in Earth causing a spark to ripple out into other planets and places. So it's a very, very exciting time to be alive.
Wow, absolutely. It really is such an exciting time. And I have a few things that I'm curious about from what you said. So it sounds like that we are able to tap into other versions of higher self the more that we tap into higher self. Is it kind of like a um how does that relationship work, I guess? Like who we tap into, what other versions of us that we tap into. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we usually will tap into the ones that are closest to the resonant frequency that we hold on Earth. So if we think about it like going up on an octave type scale, the one that's sort of like closest in terms of not just consciousness and programming, in terms of what I mean by programming is, some of the same, whether it's astrological lineups or same kind of personality traits or soul missions, they're the ones that we're more likely to connect with first. But you can jump ahead. You can move up into more closely connected with source and then kind of pick and like cherry pick and choose what it is that you wish to tap into. So say for example, if a version of self is more fluent with light language, you can tap into that version and let that other version of you come in like a teacher and show you how to I guess explore and play with whole. I'm just hearing high pitched transmission come in. So they're showing me the word bardo with that higher frequency, and we think about bardo being a place between lives. So this is also a place that you can journey or travel, and sometimes this is also a good place for a vacation or like a soul rest. But you still want to keep tethered on a soul level to this body, to this consciousness, but you can go and float out in these oceanic waters.
Mm, interesting. Interesting. So I'm curious about the um so it sounds like indeed when we tap into our higher self, it changes us, right? It seems like there's sort of there's changes that happen in us. Can you share more about those changes, whether that be on a
Yeah.
physical level or spiritual level?
Yeah, so it does happen on a physical molecular level. And that's why sometimes when you're talking with someone in hypnosis, as you would have seen, Jake, that sometimes there's a metamorphosis that changes on a physical molecular level too. So we are an accumulation of vibration and molecules and frequencies and the different various wave formations of these consciousness aspects of self will form different geometric patterns and structures that may look like different masks that we wear or different patterns and frequencies that we hold.
Are some of these physical changes, is it when we tap into like other versions of self, do we have those physical traits come through? Is that a possibility?
Yeah. So just like writing a script. So say for example, they're showing me like with illness and disease. So we can always tap into the healthy, whole, healed version of self, or even energetically, telepathically feel into a state of perfection or vibrational match with a version of us that isn't suffering or a version of us that's overcome. So we can always tune in to various different timelines. And there are other octaves of higher self that are wanting us to tune into those potentials or tune into other times where we're unburdened by worries or cares or feelings of desires not being matched.
Mm, hmm. Fascinating. Yes, I've certainly seen that in my work in the ways that we're able to quantum shift people into a healed state, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I was curious around the shift and the evolution that we're going through as humanity towards a more crystalline form. And I know there's a lot of different possibilities out there. I'm curious if this process of tapping into higher self, does that affect our crystalline structures? Like how does that I guess move us along that journey?
Yeah. So a lot of where the confusion and I guess chaos hits and different interpretations for what we call manifesting or, reality shifting, a lot of this gets caught up in the mental concept and the mental realm. And that's where the limitations come in, or where we have different obstacles that are placed on us or things to overcome. So, what we're talking about is more kind of like shifting on a molecular feeling level. And this is what we're sort of forming more when we tap in to these crystalline bodies and structures that we're starting to manifest in the earth realm. So, we are shifting beyond the mental hard drive way that our brains used to work in the past. And this is what I'm seeing in people that have double layers of gold in their aura. So, I often talk about it being like that we're stepping away from a hard drive and we're working towards more kind of cloud-based memory storage where we pull down on it from higher self. So developing the crystalline body is also what we're seeing within people's auras. There's more like a sparkle light energy rather than a mist that we're seeing on a physical level. But what this means in terms of reality bending or reality shifting, it's more that we need to sense and feel into the crystalline energy, body, and structures. And we've talked about before how big a part diet plays with this, and eating healthy, whole, high biophoton light filled food, and this will help us to gather more light quota so that we can actually change and manipulate things in our physical density. And this is also where we start to hit performing different supernatural, earth people would call it like feats, or, mind over matter, or X-Men like abilities and things.
Mm.
So there's an arrangement of the atoms on a molecular level. And that's what we're changing. We're repatterning. There's different geometries that these molecules are taking on. And this is also like where we start to get in talking about DNA and structure and harmonics and frequencies and wave tones. And I know one of the questions we discussed before was gravitational waves and electrons, and charge around that too. And that all sort of weaves and ties in together. And there are other uh, versions of us. If we think about it being like a gravitational wave, or a different emanation of us having like a black hole type technology. And what happens, this is like a storage unit device for, a black hole. Barry Littleton and I have talked about MACOs, and with MACOs or black holes being like a filing cabinet of information, or a storage unit of everything that's already sort of happened or being recorded. What's happening is these different versions of self and other multiverses, they're forming what's sort of like an awakened consciousness. And this is sending out signals and gravitational waves that our body signatures and electrons and transceivers within the pineal gland are picking up. And so it's beautiful harmonic gravitational wave going between these makos or black holes, or what we call like our storage unit consciousness at the moment. So think about it like singing, and we're singing a chorus and there's an echo that's responding back from these other multiverses.
Mm. That's really fascinating. So I did have one question around that electron spin and that concept. And I know that I'm not quite an astrophysicist in this lifetime, but I'm curious if you can share a little bit about the connection that this theoretical spin in opposite directions that the electron has, if there's a connection between our past and future lives and like that physical electron spin. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, in the vision that was downloaded to me, which formulated this question, what I saw was almost like a little bit of a squished diamond with electron charges coming out either end of the top and the bottom. And what I saw was there was like a heart energy that activated this electron spin. And there's a certain level of consciousness which has caused this spin to start resonating and vibrating. Oh, if you see me like flinching or jumping around. It's just there's a different kind of higher frequency that's running through my nervous system, and it's just making me bounce or jolt every now and then. It's like electricity coming
Mm.
through to do with what it is that we're actually discussing, because we're running this code and frequency through whilst we're speaking about it. So, what I saw in relation to these electrons, we're able to start them spinning and oscillating at different frequencies when we bring through what we would call like a coherence coming through. So, just how we talk about brain heart coherence and that being really super important in terms of manifesting things within this reality. These other versions of self are in these states of what we call brain heart coherence. And it's our beautiful hearts that are picking up on this frequency and downloading it into this realm. And this is a lot on why people are getting messages to ignore things that are of distraction or things that are of unwanted vibrational states. We're really getting the message and program to shift through where we place our attention at the moment. And so there is a lot of attention placed on our electrons and on our spin. So if you were to look at and break down what we are on a physical layer, we literally exist as light. And with all of these little particles of light, we can think about it being electrons that are oscillating and vibrating together. So this breaks us down to literally be about a teaspoon of physical matter. So we're mainly existing as light and waves and particles. So, in order to shift and change into a new state of reality, we have to collapse some of these waveforms or these consciousness programmings, or we might even call them wounds in certain places, or old programs that we're running. So, we need to collapse and step off those timelines and start to create new vibrational electron spins and charges. And a lot of the programming that's coming in that's helping us shift is coming from these higher gravitational waves from different versions of self that have already achieved this. It's a really monumentous time within our physical reality. And yes, it's been heralded to do with the age of Aquarius that we've shifted into and other marker points within our timeline astrologically.
Fascinating. Very fascinating. So when we tap into higher versions of ourself, is that how we affect the electron spin? Does that change the rate or I guess I'm not sure if rate is quite the right word.
So if we think about it in terms of like scalar waves, or even, for example, like a Rife frequency machine, and each different disease or illness will have a vibrational energy or even a counterpart frequency. So say, for example, if someone's manifest cancer in the physical form and you want to correct that, all it takes is finding the frequency homeopathically that that's running at, and then you run that frequency and it fills that gap so that physical vibration that you're holding, it's like a hole being filled so that we're no longer running that frequency. We've also talked about that on the holographic voice imprinting show and meditation that Sol's done as well. So we can think about with different states of consciousness that we're starting to oscillate from higher frequencies, that these programs or codings are coming in from other versions of self that have already achieved it. Where we're going wrong, or where we're making this process take so much longer than it has to, is we're really trying to draw mental constructs around this. We're really, I guess, if we're looking at it from a planetary wise, we're getting too Mercury and too Saturn about all of this, when we really should be stepping into more Uranus energy and Pluto energy, like really transformative, shifting frequencies. So this can be felt just by holding the intention within the crystalline body and also within our electrons. And what it's doing, it's causing these little electrons to start spinning and start to stretch and oscillate. So instead of them just being like this little ping type charge or this diamond that has a little buzz, and when I say diamond, that's to do with like the gravitational field that is created around the electron when we start it to resonate and spin. So what I'm seeing is like a morphogenic field oscillation start to change. So think of octahedrons, the beautiful crystals that are that same shape, and they will shift over many, many centuries and many, many thousands of years back and forth through a cube into the octahedron and back and forth. And this is kind of a close physical representation to do with the frequencies that are being broadcast to them and to the different states of consciousness that are holding. So when we look at more kind of like that octahedral spin, this is when we're in a creation state or a state of calling things in on a physical manifestation level, whereas the cube would represent more the 3D reality and a state of being. So we go through different stages of where we're calling different things in, and we go through different stages of where we're holding things more solidly within our vibration. There's more sort of a steady stream. So a lot of this is impacted and does come from different influences astrologically. But where we're starting to realize that we can also be influenced astrologically from higher multidimensional places. And the way that we do this is connect in with our twin versions or different versions of higher self that come in from this oversoul that we've spoken about previously. So it's more that you want to hold it within your electrons. And this is like holding a seed. So it's not that it's fully grown into the actual thing, but it contains the data for growing and allowing that to unfold.
Mm, that's so fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that. Was there anything else that it feels important to mention around how this connection to our higher selves helps us evolve?
Yeah, it's really at the moment, the most important message would be that we need to get out of our heads and come into a state of running this vibration through the body and running it through physically. So it's almost like we come undone in the overthinking of things or trying to postulate different theories around how we step into different versions of self rather than just like running it like a script or a character where it's like, okay, I'm going to play into this. So much has been forgotten in going into adulthood. A lot of like how we change and shift reality is closely resembling what we call play in the earth reality. So it's really tapping into that inner child, that imagination. And just like when you're playing as a child and, you say that you're a mom or a dad, or, you say you're a hippopotamus, it's like you really believe it and your reality starts to conform and construct. And that's the version of you that you start projecting. And there's a different harmony and morphogenic field that comes in with the other children that you play with. People start to perceive you for the script and the program and interact accordingly.
Wow, that's so fascinating and really really resonates. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know in my work, imagination plays such a big piece and can be also a roadblock for people in understanding the information that comes to them because we have kind of devalued that part of us and that side of us.
Yeah. They're showing me even it's as simple as like putting a scarf over your head and you become that character. So even just visualizing a different costume or an outfit and starting to feel into the energy of what that character feels, that's how we more like solidly broadcast that frequency and signature into this earth realm.
Mm. So visualizing that higher self image, that higher self energy, is that what you mean?
Yeah, in a way, it's also it's like trying on that costume of that excuse me, other version of self. We start to pick up the different attributes that these character versions of us have. So it's similar to how an actor would get into character. So it might be trying on a different accent, it might be trying on a different body posture. So, say, for example, in this lifetime, we might be feeling lower self confidence and, a little bit more hunched over or a little bit more kind of like introverted or inward with our gestures. So, in order to take on more of a extroverted character, we need to realize how our molecules or how our posture is holding different forms of feeling and emotion and consciousness. And when we realize that, we can change the shape and posture and we can change the charge that's happening on the electron spin. And then when you think about that, your body's starting to oscillate on a different vibration. So then you start to attract different things and different experiences towards you magnetically. And this is why we also talk about the importance of that brain heart coherence, because this is how, like, you're also sending that frequency out into the quantum and also magnetically attracting things back to you. It really happens a lot to do with the pineal, the transceiver. That would be like our uh, electrical antenna. And a lot of people's are inert or covered, whether it's to do with calcification and fluoridization that's happened down here. A lot of the antennas have purposely been taken offline.
Mm-hmm. I know that that's an important piece of, I think, a lot of our journeys is realizing that sort of blindness that we might have and remembering.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that information and that sort of analogy. It really helps to understand also the connections between our different bodies and then also the different dimensional versions of self. It's really fascinating and wild to think about all the different interactions between these different energies, these different levels, these different aspects and fractals.
Yeah. And also some of like the Tesseract science as well. It closely resembles being able to travel interdimensionally to some of these places. So it's a lot to do with the oscillation. But if we think about too, we exist in many different fractal states. So we can kind of fall in, and just like I guess in the Doctor Strange movie where you see the different realities and he starts to fall within reality into another reality, into different life forms and things. That would be like a good visual representation of this. But again, it's really important to not overcomplicate things. And if we could offer any advice into how we could also like enhance or learn more or start to advance along our soul journey path, this is also, we can upregulate things a lot faster working with crystals. So crystals have a higher divine form of consciousness. A lot of them are here holding God in the earth realm and holding certain frequencies in order to help us oscillate into higher timelines. But they also are record keepers and hold a lot of information. And some of them are here as teachers. We are like students to them.
Oh, it's beautiful to think about. I mean, I certainly love the energy of crystals and um, I've felt similar knowings around the consciousness of them. While we're on the topic of crystals, I'm curious to know if there's potentially a message from Soul's crystal friend El Theodore, the gift of God that's hanging out behind her right now.
Yeah. So the name that was given to me was Theledore, but it also is a resonance of Theodore. So those names can be used interchangeably. So with him, he started to I guess, become a little bit impatient. So that was gifted to Soul. And she, I guess, gets very easily distracted and hadn't spent the time or dedication to have a conversation with him.
Mm. So he's eager to speak.
He's very grateful for you, Jake, for holding and hosting and also extending this invitation to him to bring forward knowledge and wisdom that he's been waiting to share with the world.
My pleasure, absolutely.
He asks if there's any questions that you have for him. This is a much easier way for him to communicate or start the dialogue.
Mm. What is the I guess most important thing uh, that the collective needs to know around our relationship with you and others of your kind of with crystals?
Yeah, so the first thing that I'm seeing, like as we start to form a bridge of connection or incidence, I've seen like gold electricity coming out of the crystal towards my crown. So there's like a electrical field that's being established. So the more that we work with our Theledore, the stronger this electrical field will become. So if you think about it, in that our fields are just starting to understand or get to know each other or interact in that way, it's almost like there's a jump start electrical activation that's happening and taking place. So the more that we sort of tune in and feel into it, the easier and stronger the messages will flow. So it just, I guess, yeah, just give me a little time to just get to feel into this field and relay these messages. So what Theledore is showing me is there's a lot of message in particular for our soul group that he's attuned to. And he's showing me a lot of us, like students, sitting around him in what we would say was Atlantean days. And if we think about the way that school runs now, and sometimes the teacher might choose to put a video on or, a movie for educational purposes. Back in some of these Atlantean and Lemurian days, there would be different lessons that a crystal would be transmitting to the class, and the class would directly receive downloads of information, activations, and packets of light that would come in information waves. And so I'm just here to remind you that this is still possible and we still have this ability to this day. So whether this is done in a class situation or a setting, or whether it's done just in a personal level, this is available to you guys now.
Oh, that's so cool. It makes sense that you guys would be as willing to teach and share as you are. I feel like we've got so much support as humans on this journey. What's your relationship to human souls and to us as beings?
Yeah, so I would be what you would say is more like a wizard, would be how people would have thought of me in the past or in these other past life realms. So if you think about my consciousness, more just existing in a higher vibrational state body. So when we measure or look into the hertz rate that quartz vibrates on in particular, I'm not physically standing in the room, but you're catching like the wave of the light and the vibration. So it seems to be physically solidly manifest. But if I was to be in a physical teacher form, I could not hold the density of consciousness and vibration. It's similar to where we see some of those beautiful children that are labeled with, learning disabled or autistic. A lot of that electricity and higher consciousness is very, very hard to hold in a physical human body. It fries a lot of the networks and circuits. So in these other lifetimes, we would come in form of crystal manifestation and teach that way because we can encode a lot of the source information, a lot of the, if you could term it to computer speak, a lot of the files and a lot of the downloads were much easier to be transmissible through this crystalline form of consciousness.
So have you had human lifetimes? Have you incarnated as other beings besides like this crystalline structure?
Oh, yes. But it's just so much easier to be able to exist in this state. And sometimes the human form can be very, very irritating and frustrating, especially when you're holding higher uh, forms of information and things that you need to cognitively be able to relay. And this is similar to the shamanic crystal skulls. So the Mitchell Hedges skulls and other different crystalline skulls that are planted, a lot of these are recognized because they look human-like, and shamans did download their consciousness like a computer, transferring files into these crystals. And you're able to tap into these crystals and download these files, just like many students are able to download files that are held within the Theledore crystal.
Mm, how interesting. How interesting.
It really, it's just about holding it to your third eye. That's the transceiver, that's the crystalline part of the human that's oscillating.
Mm,
So we have these magnetite crystals that oscillate and vibrate, but they also have the ability to be able to download information. And then our consciousness translates it, whether it's in picture, vibration, color, sound, or frequency form. So it doesn't always make sense in terms of like a storyline or a data file in that way, but it is a big part of the crystalline structure that we're starting to exhibit. And this is also, excuse me, where things like white powder gold, this is very, very important to be able to interact between the crystals and the human form, because this also alchemically disappears between the physical and non-physical states. So when you try and weigh and measure it, there's a different weight that comes with it. So it's like changing electrical states, or sorry, like molecular weight states. So when you're working with the crystals, you're also starting to oscillate in and out of this vibration and in and out of this dimension.
mm. Oh, interesting. So will our it sounds like we have the potential to shift our relationships to be even deeper with our crystal friends and to um, build these relationships more. Um, I'm curious if there's anything more that's important for us to know about building this connection, building this relationship.
Yeah, so thinking about it as a dance and also vibrationally starting to get to know our crystalline brothers and sisters. So a lot of them chose to stay behind and download their knowledge in other lifetimes. So a lot of high priests and priestesses, especially from this Atlantean period of time. And you also have what we would call meteorites that are downloadings of higher forms of consciousness that come from off world places or higher star frequencies. They also are like beautiful soul memories, fragments, codes that have made it to the physical realm.
Mm,
So the a lot of the way that we can interact with these beautiful crystalline beings is it's like coherently dancing our minds and hearts with the soul frequency, mind and heart of the crystals. And you always want to put up your protection, as we talk about with everything. because there are some darker forms or dark magic that is encoded in some crystals. And so we really want to use our our ability to mitigate those dramas and those dark energies.
Thank you for sharing that and for clarifying that as well.
I am being shown. It's interesting. There's a flicker of my eyelid that's pulsing on the left hand side. And with that, it's to do with the electricity that's being transmitted to me from our Theledore. I'm finding it easier to relay the message rather than like have him directly speak through me. He's showing me, as we said before, that white powder gold um, and ormus being very, very important to changing the crystalline structure within our bodies. I keep getting shown a cup of like golden light, and I feel like this is the white powder gold. This is like what they used in ancient Egyptian times. And it's also, it helps us to like forge the ascension path a lot faster and helps us to start receiving light codes. We've seen this in some of my photos where there's a lot more plasma energy around. And even if you're to take white powder gold, stand in the sun and let that solar plasma feel your energy, your light body, your field. This is where you see things like that have appeared in Soul's photos with like rainbow and things and different like plasma energy that comes across in the photos. And this is also connected to some of the fairy realms find it easier and some of the elementals to show themselves when they're around a medium or someone who is like a conduit between realms or worlds. They can harness the energy of the clairvoyant or the medium to show themselves a little bit more into our realm.
Mhm. That connection on the energetic level.
Yeah, it's almost like they're pulling on the plasma light quota of the individual to be able to show their emanation into the physical and into where we can see them with our eyes and capture them with our technology or
Hmm.
capture the living light, not them personally.
Hmm. Fascinating. Makes me think about some of the like chemical reactions that you have between metals and like oxygen, and where you have that interaction between like the barrier between the two.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a form of alchemy.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that. Is there any other messages that you feel called to share with us today? Anything else that it's important for us to know before we turn our attention back to the higher self?
More just starting to get to know about the alchemical sciences of the past and the ancient ones. So definitely look into ormus, look into white powder gold. Some will call it the Anunnaki elixir of the gods.
Mm.
It will also, if you were to ingest it or have it and you're not ready or you haven't done the work in terms of ego, you can get slapped upside the head with it. It can make your stuff come up if you haven't been doing the work and you were to take it. It helps you to jump through the hoops a lot faster.
Mm. So it sounds like some awareness and some intention are important if you're going to start taking that.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm curious.
It,
Well, sorry, go ahead.
it, it is the the medium to help start to form that contrast or that connection between the humans and the crystals. It really is one of those things that you can do to enhance that connection and to help be a conduit to bringing the messages through.
It's wonderful. Would you like us to come back and ask some more questions another time?
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Wonderful. I will be looking forward to that, and I'll be thinking about um, and feeling into what we should ask about. So thank you. I appreciate that offer. Is it all right if we tune back into Soul's higher self and continue with some of those questions?
Sure.
Wonderful. We're talking about interacting energetically with our higher self, with crystals. I'm curious around our connections with the sun and maybe the differences between, or maybe how our interactions with the sun complement our interaction with our higher self. Can you share more about those different connections?
Yeah, so I first want to reference the morphogenic field. So many of us have heard about the morphogenic field to do with monkeys on the island and washing, whether it's coconut or yam, to get the dirt off and then eating it. And then monkeys on the other island started to pick this up. So, in reference to the morphogenic field, it doesn't just have to exist between a one particular type of species. So, there's gravitational waves and solar flares and emanations that are coming off the sun that bring in a different consciousness wave that impact our morphogenic field in terms of human consciousness. So we do feel intense changes with these. We do feel and experience intense emotions arise to the surface and experience headaches and irregular sleeping patterns and a whole array of other different things that are coming through that are impacting our personalities, our consciousness, and the uptake of light that we're being able to hold too.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you for sharing that. Is there it feels like and it sounds like there's an interplay between our higher self and the sun, and both of uh both of these beings, these consciousnesses helping us to evolve and to shift more into our psychic gifts. Do you have anything to say around that topic?
Yeah. So this solar logo, this beautiful sun that we have here with Earth, and I'm talking about the organic, not the synthetic. This is also a portal into higher dimensions and also higher waveforms of consciousness. So we can travel interdimensionally through the sun. This is also where a lot of the angelic beings reside as well. This is also sometimes where we see ships coming and going through the sun, and why there's sometimes angelic faces that are photographed in some of those beautiful solar implosions and emanations that we're seeing.
Fascinating. Is the sun a portal to like one place, or can it lead to multiple places, multiple dimensions?
Multiple, it's like an airport,
Mm,
it's like a
fascinating.
jump room.
Ah, wonderful analogy. Will there come a point when we humans will utilize that portal more?
Yeah, many already have.
Mm,
I've recorded it in my Soul Star meditation too, where you travel through the Syrian gate and through uh, near the portal of the sun. Because sometimes you don't have to travel through it, but you can kind of catapult to do with uh, coming near the voltage of the sun and use that to take you to different destinations. It's almost how we said at the start with the star map and star hopping or star jumping.
Hmm. Does it help you to like shift your vibration? Is that how that works?
Yeah, it can help to, it's like an energy catapult. Think about pulling back a rubber band ready to kind of like build a electrical charge, and then you use your consciousness to aim and fire and release.
Mm. Wow, that's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else that's important to know around the sun?
Mana or mana, it's like a higher energy. It's like chi or life force energy. It's different to the mana or chi or plasma that exist in the earth realm. It's like a solar blessing that we can uptake the or eat in the mana or chi waves that come off the sun. Just like how flowers will or plants will convert this into chlorophyll. And then we also will eat this to take in those biophoton energies. So we can do this through eating in the mana or the sun directly, just like the plants do.
Are humans doing that more? I've certainly heard more and more talk of that switch to consuming light over physical food. Can you share about that process?
So it's written more in the ancient scriptures and the older Vedic practices and in various different Chinese traditions as well. But it's more the Western world is just discovering it. And there's various different postures energetically that leave us more receptive and open to taking this into our light body. The moon also has some lunar impacts, but it's more connected to do with the emotions. The moon also impacts more the sacred waters within. So the sun would more impact light body energy and the chi, but the moon more impacts the water, the plasma. And this is connected to do with our consciousness. So we can work with both together. We haven't been taught the full extent of the magic and the alchemy of this.
Can't remember if I had read this in Dolores Cannon's work or not, but around ancient technology that helped to capture both the sun energy and the moon energy, and to utilize that like both energies in different ways. Is that are we looking at maybe a return to remembering that knowledge?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of the energy to do with plasma. So if we look at the electron charge that's within the plasma, and especially the plasma within the body. So if we look at how it's created within the body in the part of the brain, the choroidal plexus, we see that the blood is separated from the waters. And so there's a magical plasma charge that exists within those waters. And so this also runs up and down the spinal column and gathers that Kundalini charge. So, with this, we also see that this palpates the crystals within the pineal gland and activates them. So, this helps to kind of shoot our consciousness out of the body in a way and make us one with the quantum. So this is a very important practice to be able to pulsate and activate these waters within, to activate these crystals to help us to get more into this quantum state of reality. And what I mean by that, it's connecting your internal column of plasma with the plasma that exists in the quantum universe. And with the sun gathering the light quota, we see a lot of the ascended masters having high light quota. So Jesus having a perfected state of light quota, Kuan Yin having a perfected state of light quota, and a lot of these other beings that we hear stories like Dijawal Kal, many others of different nationalities and different, like Lady Nada, so many different beings that were physical that achieved a higher state of consciousness. A lot of them were activated from within and without. So both via the sun and the emanations and the mana, the chi life force energy that comes off the sun, and with these plasma waters within.
Mm. So I'm curious if that is that part of why there's been efforts to block out the sun or to minimize its effect on us and also to pollute our inner waters as well. Is that where some of the motivation comes from?
Yeah. So there's a huge stigma around the sun, and there's different schools and beliefs and different camps around this too. So there are some that believe that it's too much and that humanity cannot deal with the uptake of energy and level of consciousness. And some of these beings are also wanting to control that as well. So they more are in this power ego energy dynamic of wanting to override people's free will. And so they're looking to control the mechanism of what is activating our higher forms of consciousness and waking up to the reality of being controlled. And so that would be more kind of like the dark opposition. And then you have beings and cultures that have been teaching about this beautiful power of the sun and sun gazing as well. But on a basic level, we all know how good it feels, say, if you're in a cold climate and you're sitting near a window and that sun is warming your back and activating the cells. It also helps to produce the happy hormones. It helps also for us to manufacture melatonin and light within our pineal and our body. It helps us with the circadian rhythms. It also helps us with, our connection to our serotonin too and our happiness.
Hmm.
So this is why a lot of the darkness and destruction is to do with our food and to do with our gut, specifically because serotonin is produced in the gut. So they are trying to shut down our happy factory, our happy hormones, and keep us in a lower vibrational state. So it's really important to detox and protect the gut, as well as work with the light body too. We can't stress the importance of this enough. And this is also why green juice, getting these biophoton higher physical levels into the body, being able to hold more light quota. And what we see is with the so-called green juices and things, they do help to detox heavy metals that are blocking some of these things that we're talking about within the gut. So it works both ways. It helps to detox, but it also helps to hold more biophoton energy too. And there's parasites within the bodies that do not like this, those parasites within what you call government that are also realizing this and trying to keep us in a fast food agenda, toxic lifestyle. And this is also, EMFs and things too. It's a lot to do with the vibration. So we can actually play harmonious vibrational music that helps to deactivate some of the negative hold stuff, just like parasites getting irritated by frequencies. A lot of them will become too uncomfortable within the physical body to stick around.
Mm. Thank you so much for all of that advice and guidance and helping us to understand the different layers and levels um, of these different concepts because I know sometimes things can get isolated from the whole bigger picture. And so I really appreciate all of the advice and help you're giving us today. So thank you. Is it all right if I ask another question?
Sure.
All right. I was curious around this connection between us and these higher versions of self. And we've talked a lot about the ways that it affects us and helps us, assists us. I'm curious about the other end of the stick, as it were. How does this connection between us and our higher versions of self help them, if it does?
Yeah. So as soon as you started to ask the question, I actually saw one of those versions of self start to mind and heart link into our dimension. So I'm actually feeling her presence more within me than what I am my physical earth version of self. So there's a lightness of spirit and a lightness of heart that feels so ethereal on a subatomic particle level. So right now, that version is starting to oscillate and start to become the predominant version of self. And a big part of why we're interested in linking up with the earth versions of self is the more that we can progress on a multi soul level, the faster that we speed up this multiverse universal program. So, just as earth is progressing, so we each of the other different incarnations. And if we can work together holistically, we can speed up the program of returning to full consciousness and full creation mode as a whole. So it's not just about the earth realm gaining more consciousness and clarity. And if you think about these other versions of self being like a higher guide, we also have love and compassion for the earth versions. We see the struggle and the disharmonious energies and vibrations that the people of earth have to deal with. And so not everyone will link in with higher self version. Some people are fully happy and complete to be operating in the matrix and just running the programs and the scripts or just reliving the Groundhog Day of past over and over again. But for those that desire to connect with the collective and to progress in terms of soul evolution, we're ready and available to come in like a guide and to help start to oscillate. So the more that you can meditate and connect with these higher versions of us and self, the more that you can start to vibrate away and to drop the dead weight and lower programs and waveforms of consciousness of the characters you guys have been playing down here in the earth realm. It's as simple as just feeling into the celestial lightness. And then your earth vibration starts to pick up resonance. And then we start to lighten in frequency. So the more you can meditate and practice this, the more that you're actually changing things in the earth domain and realm. It's as simple as that.
You so much for sharing that. And that leads me to my next question, which is around discernment. And I know that some people can fall into fear or into self-doubt when it comes to tapping into other dimensional beings, whether it be guides or the angels or you, the higher self. And so I'm curious if you can share a little bit of either guidance or encouragement for those watching who would like to tap into their higher selves more, but are worried about that discernment of knowing who they're tapping into.
Yeah. So love is the medium that holds the light. So with this, just tuning in and only like stating, I only wish to connect with that which is for my best and highest good, or to connect with other versions of self that love me unconditionally. And so there's a state of consciousness that these other versions have reached, and there's a certain amount of love and light that they hold, not just for themselves, because that's the important thing. It's when we talk about self love, it's not recognize the importance of how this impacts your whole paradigm and how when you have self love, other people feel this and it's generated as an energy. So it's really important to love self first before loving others. Otherwise, we'll be loving from a state of ego. And even though there might be other higher self versions, some of these are still living from ego. So, this is where we need to state that we only wish to connect with those versions of us that love us unconditionally.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know folks are going to appreciate it. Any further insight on this theme of discernment? I feel like it's been coming up a lot lately, and I'm curious if there's any other messages around discernment for the collective to know at this time.
Yeah, so it's one of the most important things for not getting pulled into the dark astral pit swampy energy, would probably be the best way to describe it. This place is very real, and within it exist lower forms of consciousness state. So some of these are created by our own egos and by our traumas and things and identities that have formed almost like an egregore of self from past traumas and things that have happened. So this is why it's super important to let go of, past traumas or past identities and versions of self. It's very important we no longer identify with those things and that we start to identify with these higher forms of self that we're talking about, because this can then stream in and broadcast new layers of reality. This is also like to get a little bit more complex with this. This also links in with our acupuncture system, our meridian system, and axis-tonal points on Earth. So, this is also why in certain areas you might have karmic things show up or play up, and why in other areas you might have ease and flow. So it is also linked into the astrological programs. You will see them as your astrocartography lines, but just know that it's also linked into the axitonal lines, and the electron spin hits differently with the vibrational frequencies of certain things. And this is also with, with the grid systems and with vortex points. While sometimes we have a direct kind of feeling or down knowing or an upgrade, or even like why we see UFOs and other versions of self in some of these places.
That's really fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. I know we're getting a little close on time and we've gone a little bit over what we had talked about. Curious if you have any last messages to share with the collective before we go.
Yeah, just to keep going, keep striving, keep taking in data and information that comes in from these higher light forms and from places and beings that love you unconditionally. A lot of the teaching and downloading is not really to be done by, I guess, the human experience in terms of, books and things like that anymore. We're getting more direct downloads from higher forms of consciousness, and a lot of that other stuff, even online, is distraction at the moment. We can gain so much more from feeling into these higher versions of self and starting to hold those particular gravitational waves and electron spins that we were talking about before.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anything else that is important for us to know before we go?
No, this is a pretty good transmission for now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, then. And I know the collective as well as soul will really appreciate all of this insight that you've shared with us.
I'm feeling more tears as soon as you mentioned collective and soul family.
Hmm.
There's just so much love that I have for you and for them. It just makes me feel emotional knowing we've all come down to do this together and to remember.
Hmm. Feel the same.
Thank you, Jay.